welcome to ScreenHour with me, Mikey.
And with me, Kieran.
So this week it's going to be similar to the last episode in the sense that we're going to do like a convince me style type of episode where Kieran hasn't watched Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show. I've watched all of it. Admittedly, I'm a big Star Wars fan, and this is like
That's underrated.
more designed for me in the sense that Obi-Wan is my favourite. Like Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan is my favourite character in Star Wars. But due to the age I am, I grew up with the prequels, and love them or hate them, that's the Star Wars trilogy I grew up with. I didn't grow up on like the original trilogy, obviously, because I'm like too young for that. Or I didn't grow up in the Disney trilogy. So for our age, the prequels are very hold a high place in my heart. I have a soft spot for them.
Yeah.
So that's a little prefix with it. But I loved it. There was very little I think it done wrong, if anything. And I'll go into spoilers and I'll flag that up when we do. But if anything, I think it just needed more of some of the good stuff it delivered, some aspects. It's a tight story. The structure, and this isn't spoilers because, well, it's been everywhere and it's in the first episode and it's on the internet, it's a double-edged sword, the reason Obi-Wan comes out of hiding. And it's young Leia, and he has to go rescue young Leia.
So hold on, what's the timeline? Like, is this after Revenge of the Sith or what?
10 years after Revenge of the Sith. For main Disney new continuity, it's the most recent thing to my knowledge. I might be wrong if there's a more hardcore Star Wars fan listening. But after this, there's continuity-wise, is the Star Wars game, which came a couple of years ago, Fallen Order, with Cal Kestis.
The one made by Respawn.
That's it, the one made by Respawn. And then there's Star Wars, the animated series Rebels. And then it's Star Wars Rogue One, straight into A New Hope.
Yeah.
But this is, as I say, after Revenge of the Sith. It's 10 years after, But what it does a good job of doing is the reason everyone comes out and hiding. And the first episode, again, I won't spoil it, things go down and it just shows everyone just being a bit of not a pusher, but he's not getting bullied or anything, but he's just letting things slide. He's seen bad things happen and he knows he could intervene or whatever.
Past the point of caring.
Yeah, and he don't really care. He does more so in the sense that he knows that he's got to hide as well.
Yeah.
And this is to the wider picture of the whole series, but as much as I like Star Wars and the older ones particularly, the original trilogy has some good acts in it, don't get me wrong. Yeah, particularly Mark Hamill and James Earl Jones.
I struggled with Luke Skywalker in the original trilogy. I always thought Luke was really whiny and such just a little bitch. I didn't like him. But then, Mark Hamill's career since then, I just think he's incredible, right? And then when he came back and reprised in the new reboots, he was the best thing about all the reboots.
Yeah, I can see that. This is what I mean. In New Hope 1977, he wasn't the most charismatic. Obviously, you got that Han Solo type of thing, and there is some good acting in it. But my favourite thing about the entirety of this show is how it's a character study of Obi-Wan and him feeling cut off and depressed and he can't be fucked with the Force because of how the Jedi life has got him and what's happened. You would be
Does he sort of not necessarily lose the ability to use the Force, but is his Force weaker because he's not using it? It's if you don't use a muscle, it gets weaker sort of thing. Again,
I'll go over it a bit more in spoilers, but as you say, he gets rusty because he's not really connected with Force because he's depressed, And if it was real life, and I'm trying to think of a metaphor towards it, but imagine you're in a club, or I suppose the army's a good partner, I suppose, but everybody you knew died on your side, apart from you and somebody else, and you're getting hunted. You'd be having a bad time,
Hold on, I want to hear the analogy of in the club. You're in the club, and then actually, if you're in the army and all your friends are dead, I was like, wait, where's he going with the club analogy?
But it's a stark realization that what's happened to the Star Wars universe in general when the Empire takes over, everybody's having a bit of a bad time.
Yeah.
But suddenly that everyone's helpless. He gave it his best shot, and he still fucked it, type of thing. And he thinks what the only thing he should do, his purpose, is to look after Luke. And then Leia gets involved, and she needs rescuing. And Jimmy Smits comes back into it, and he asks for everyone's help. And I can see when Leia, young Leia, I think she's badass, and there's no bits in it where you feel like the legacy of Carrie Fisher and Princess Leia has been pissed on. I feel like that's done really well.
How old is young Leia?
She's like 10 years old.
She's about 10, okay.
But I can see why it would get annoying for people. I can see why, particularly older Star Wars fans, I suppose.
Well, it's said Dad's generation, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But it does have some kiddie bits, and it has this classic. And I know Star Wars has always had like droids, and don't get me wrong, I'm not stupid. Like it's always had R2 and C3PO from the beginning, where it would be, and now BB-8 and even BD-1 in like the game more recently. But they make the cynic in me thinks the droid they have in this one is just so they could sell merchandise.
Oh, they've done they did that with the reboots. They made some little squishy sort of like wobbly thing or something, didn't they?
The porgs,
Porgs, that's it. You just know as soon as you see it, that's just like a selling thing. It looked like the new Buzz Lightyear trailer. There's like a Garfield-looking cat in it, and you just immediately know that that's some sort of marketing thing that they can sell to the kids. Yeah, and it's a bit. I don't know if as we get older, we get more cynical, but you see that sort of thing, and you just like it's the biggest like roll your eyes on the back of your head possible. You just can't be fucked in arse with the world anymore. You just see that, and you're like, oh, for fuck's sake.
And that her love for droids in it, and like I know it's her companion, and like throughout the show it makes her feel safe, and it's more of a crutch type thing. But and I know Star Wars has a history of them selling figurines, and like the merchandise is a big part of Star Wars. But that's what I feel. I feel as well that was a big thing of it. And Leia, like I feel like everything, whether it's just because Mandalorian has Baby Yoda, and I know Baby Yoda's not a child, I know it's a puppet, and the child actor does do well, but I feel like everything you see nowadays has like child actors in.
Yeah, there are some brilliant child actors. I'm trying to think of something I watched recently. I can't remember what it was, but there was a child actor in it, and I was like, holy shit, that child actor was better than most people in it.
I'm not, but whether it be like The Witcher, whether it be The Mandalorian, or something like that, it's just like a brooding figure which needs somebody to like bring them down. But it's also its strength. A lot of its like strength for the show is the back and forth between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Princess Leia. That does really well. Probably one of the best things about it is it's one of the 3 times in the Star Wars franchise I know of where you see Darth Vader slash Anakin. By that I mean you see Anakin underneath the armor or the armor of Darth Vader type thing.
So he takes his helmet off and every now and again, or is just like fully out of costume.
There's that aspect, but I won't go into it too much in spoilers. But the only other times that's happened, and bearing in mind this is like Star Wars been going on for a long time, like over 40 years. But
was it Return of the Jedi? Is it?
Yeah. So at the end of Return of the Jedi, and then the Star Wars Rebels. Spoilers for Rebels, but this episode came out probably about 3-4 years ago now. Is Ahsoka, his apprentice, attacks him and bests him to a degree, cuts his mask, and they mix James Earl Jones's voice with Matt Lanter, who voiced Anakin in the Clone Wars when Ahsoka was introduced, and like those years of like, the camaraderie between Matt Lanter and I think might be Ashley Williams who plays Ahsoka, who voices Ahsoka. I don't know. Ashley Eccleston, sorry, Ashley Eccleston, I think it is. So like that's really good, and you hear him, and like when they're having a fight, and you see half of Anakin's face, and you have the Revenge of the Sith eyes, the yellow eyes. So that's good. And then the other time, he's in this, and it happens a few times when you see Darth Vader out of the suit, and like it was in the trailer, you see him in the back of the tank and stuff, but there's a lot of Vader in it. So say not all in all is probably, don't get me wrong, I know it's 6 episodes, so it's like pretty much 6 hours of Obi-Wan, and you probably get about half hour, 40 minutes at a push of a Darth Vader.
Like in total across the 6 episodes?
Yeah. Which isn't bad, really.
So it's still the Obi-Wan show.
But it's
still the Obi-Wan show, but what they do really well is when Darth Vader's in it, it's for purpose.
Yeah, they're not just there because, everyone loves Darth Vader. He's there because it matters to the story.
One of the double-edged things...
Does Vader still look menacing? Because Vader was always just sort of like this big presence, and I don't know how tall Hayden Christensen is, and he's not exactly a bulky lad. So, Vader is like Dwayne Johnson or Dave Bautista. He's sort of like that sort of figure is what I sort of envision underneath Vader, because he's such a dominating figure.
As you say, Dave Prowse played him in the original. I think Dave Prowse was 6'7". He was the body
Yeah.
And then they were chanting because he had his farmer accent, as they said.
Yeah. They dubbed him with James Earl Jones, which I think is the ultimate kick in the teeth. But there we are.
Anakin, I think Aiden's actually quite short compared to you, I suppose, because you're 6'5". But Anakin, my boy, Hayden Christian is 6'2", I'm pretty sure. So he's not short. Like you say, he's not 6'7". But the way they film it, and whether it be stunt doubles or what, or just, we got to think is, I suppose,
well, camera angles.
Star Wars lore, the Darth Vader suit obviously adds height to him.
Yeah.
So, because he's essentially leaning a nugget. He loses pretty much both arms.
Yeah, he's a cyborg, isn't he? Basically,
he's half a bloody robot. But yeah, he's still menacing, and he's very much so. Again, to the point, I'll discuss it a bit more in spoilers. But what's good about it is it's Anakin Darth Vader, like I say, but he gives 0 fucks. And he's so set on.
Did Vader ever give any fucks? Because he just used to choke everyone out that he disagreed with.
He knew how to put, somebody, I watched a video a couple of years ago, maybe Chris. And I don't even know whether this person was being serious, but I think he was, because it was a sweaty Star Wars geek video. And he was saying that one of the most powerful feats Darth Vader's ever done. And it makes me laugh now. And they're climb it off, we've just got over the pandemic with Zoom, chats and video conferencing. Is when he force chokes somebody when they're having a video conference call. And he's this bloke's on a different spaceship or a different Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
And he's just force choking him.
I like how you said you watched this video of some sweaty Star Wars YouTuber, and you're like, really, Chan, you're the sweaty Star Wars enjoyer because you were watching the video.
Not watching the video. But no, when he's featured in it, you feel his presence, and it's intense, And he's, as I say, he's dead set on having revenge on Obi-Wan Kenobi. That he throws caution at the wind, as they say.
So does he know Kenobi's still alive? Is it sort of like a revenge tale for Vader? Is he hunting for him?
So Vader's hunting for Obi-Wan to a degree. But there's another character, and this is one of the great additions to it. Is a character called Reva, who's an Inquisitor. And the Inquisitors are essentially the Jedi hunters. So after after the Purge and Order 66, most, like, especially if you want to put a statistic on it, and this is a statistic I've just made up now, but I think this is a good scope for it, I suppose. Probably 80% of the Jedi were killed during Order 66.
Yeah.
But there was drips and drabs of Jedi left.
Yeah.
So the Inquisitors were formed to try and chase them down, and these were Force-sensitive people who, number one, like, were all Jedi and wanted to turn to the dark side, or what, just were straight up bad guys who were Force sensitive and just wanted to be bad luck.
I mean, that in itself sounds like a decent TV show.
Yeah, so
like the
Inquisitors
Inquisitors
really
hunting down Jedis. I mean, that sounds quite cool.
yeah, exactly. It has a really good premise in itself. I'm surprised, as opposed to, this is not me complaining about the other Disney stuff they're bringing out, which I haven't even watched, but as opposed to a lot of good guy stuff, like we're getting Andor, which is, again, it's set after Obi-Wan. It's just at the turn of the Rebels and before New Hope. Before
Did you say it's called And/Or
Andor.
or And/Or the planet?
No. So Andor's like this guy who's introduced in Rogue One, and he's just like he's like one of the not rebel leaders. He's like a rebel captain.
Oh, I thought you meant and/or, as in like Marvel's What If. I thought Star Wars were doing like an and/or sort of something or other.
Oh no!
I was like, my eyes were rolling hard in the back of my head then.
But as you say, I think it'd be good to see like a straight up villain TV show if they just followed that.
Yeah.
But the Inquisitors were introduced in Rebels, and they were designed to be Jedi hunters, as I'll say.
Mhm.
But they introduced this one called Reva, and she's a great addition to the franchise. She's the one who starts chasing after Obi-Wan, and she knows that Darth Vader is like really wants Obi-Wan, and so she's trying to get in the good graces
Yeah.
of Darth Vader,
Yeah.
and her.
So is she deliberately trying to hunt for Obi-Wan, or does Obi-Wan make like a mistake or something and she catches it, or is she like her sole purpose is like Vader wants Obi-Wan, right? My sole purpose in life now is to hunt Obi-Wan.
Bit of both. She orchestrates. Again, this is like spoilers, but it happens really quickly in the like at the start of the show.
Yeah.
She orchestrates like a bang of like low-level criminals or just like bounty hunters to kidnap Leia, and she presumes, not even knowing that Leia is Anakin's daughter, just knowing that Leia is a daughter of Obi-Wan's friend, Jimmy Smith, or like Bail Organa.
So she's like bait in a sense.
Yeah, Leia's bait in a sense. So gets them to kidnap Leia, knowing that Bail Organa would ask everyone for help, which she then reluctantly answers the call. And that's the structure of the show. Of like all 6 episodes is taking Leia back to Bail Organa.
It sounds a little similar to Mandalorian in a way, how he's got to, take Baby Yoda somewhere. I never watched The Mandalorian, so I don't know anything, but I just know that basically he has Baby Yoda and he's got to take him somewhere.
Reva, sorry, as I say, like there was a lot of racism going around because, well, people are dicks, I suppose, and it's what it is.
In IRL?
Yeah, in IRL, because...
Oh, sorry, for listeners that aren't down with the cool lingo, IRL means in real life.
In real life, yeah. You don't say it too often, to be fair. She has a great performance, and her character, especially towards the end of the show, has some really cool scenes. But whether it's because they lean on that character too much to make a big, like, to show her how, like, badass she is, or the other Inquisitors are useless. They aren't a threat. They aren't powerful. They don't seem as badass. Only Reva really stands out. So one of the guys, do you know Han from the Fast and Furious franchise?
Oh, Han, yeah, that's always eating.
But he's in it as an Inquisitor, and he doesn't have a lot to do at all, really.
Is he more like a cameo, or Well, not necessarily a cameo, but he's like in it occasionally, sort of thing.
He's in it occasionally, has quite a few scenes. There's another Inquisitor who's literally just in the background, and then there's the Grand Inquisitor, who, for proper Star Wars nerd, for like a lot of Star Wars nerds who watch the Rebels as well, know basically what happens with his storyline. You've kept guessing, and you know something's a bit sus with his storyline. And I'll get into that in spoilers.
Oh, and it comes into light in this.
And it comes to that's yeah, you are right. That's what it's like.
Yeah.
But there's some good actors in the Inquisitors team, Reva especially. But
why was the racism towards? Is it Reva?
Reva, yeah. I don't understand why. I think they were saying that like she's a bad character, or whether it's because she's not a bad character. I think like her character, especially towards the end, makes a lot of sense.
Oh, so people only watch like a couple of episodes and think, oh, this character doesn't do anything, or there's no purpose.
So, yeah, and like, well, it's because
why be racist? That's got nothing to do with race. That's just poor writing.
Yeah, exactly. If you thought that, like, it's just poor writing, poor character. At the same time, nobody complains about Lando. Like that Lando has a sudden change of heart, as much as I like Lando in Return of the Jedi, and he's like, oh, maybe I should not have done
and
that.
arguably, people were far more racist back then.
Oh, right, I love that, yeah.
Some people are just fucking idiots, man. I don't understand it.
One of my favourite things about like Star Wars now, not to sound like the millennial I am and like trying to be an it guy boy, trying to be a feminist, but as much as there's not a lot of women in Star Wars, and like most.
No, the woman was Princess Leia, and Princess Leia was the one that had to wear the golden bikini, you know. So
yeah.
Could that be more? Could that be any more objectifying?
Yeah, she's in it for 2 frames. The other woman in the original trilogy, and that's it.
Yeah.
And Aunt Prue, I suppose, who's an old lady, and the guys doesn't have much to do. Bless her. But the since Disney have took over, sound like Donald Duck then. Since Disney have took over, they've took a step in the right direction. Because even the prequel trilogy is just Padme.
Yeah, to be fair.
It's just Padme, really. It really is.
Do you know that was Kieran Knightley's first role? That was, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, it's weird to think as well because Kieran Knightley is very much a throwaway character in the original trilogy, and then obviously she rose to prominence with Pirates of the Caribbean. But it's just like it's weird that she's in that for like a little bit, and she's kind of like seen as an extra. But now we all know her as obviously Keira Knightley, and when you watch Star Wars, you're like, wait, is that Keira Knightley? It's a weird one because obviously it's like her first role early in her career.
As I said, the women in it up until more recently have and the women roles, and they remember like Force Awakens got took the piss out because Rey was described as a Mary Sue in the sense that she was like all of a sudden.
It's also a shit film, but.
Yeah, I think Force Awakens is a crap film. I think it's just a retread of Never. But
and that's coming from you that loves Star Wars.
It's not a hot take. Nearly 7 years later, me saying it's a retread of Never. But it's just because it's a fact. It's general consensus. But Rey, I know she's too OP too quickly, but she's not a megally crap character. I think she's good.
If we bring this back to race as well. Not a single person has ever complained that Rey was white. It was just because she was a shit character. So why is Reva? Why is that? What's Rey's got to do with it?
Reva's gold. The other thing, the action scenes. So there isn't loads, but again, what they do really good about it is that when they're great. They're meaningful. Some are pretty emotional, which is one of its biggest strengths.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have an epic battle scene. There's no like battle on Hoth. There's no battle on Crate.
Oh, like at the end of the series or at the end of any episode.
Yeah. There's no by epic battle scene, like by definition, like there is a great duel, but it's not like a big one on scale.
Oh, is that like so? The duel is between what, Obi and Vader, is it, or something?
Yeah, or something like that.
What do you mean, something like that? Is it or isn't it?
Well, yes, it is. It's not a full spoiler. Yeah, of course it is. That's again,
Thing is, as well, you know that nothing becomes of it because they come again against each other in. Is it New Hope?
yeah, it is.
Yeah, they come back together again in New Hope. So you know nothing really comes of that encounter, which is a bit shit when you really like think logically about it when you're trying to enjoy something. But my biggest problem with Star Wars is every single lightsaber fight is a pile of shit. Every lightsaber fight I've seen on YouTube, right, has been far better than anything I have seen in Star Wars. And at the end of the day, that's the reason you're watching Star Wars, is because you want to see lightsaber fights. That's the only reason I ever really tuned in was to watch lightsaber fights, and they were always absolute pants. I mean, to be fair, the best one in the whole Star Wars sort of universe of the original trilogy, the prequels, and then the new reboot release or whatever you want to call them, was the Darth Maul fight with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan. That was probably the best lightsaber fight across all films.
Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan versus Anakin is a great lightsaber fight. Attack of the Clones doesn't have a lot of great things about it, but Attack of the Clones has some great fight scenes in it. Return of the Jedi
They're a little naff.
has
They're
some
not
great
like
fight scenes in it.
they're not long enough. Whereas like the ones I've seen on YouTube, I can't remember. Is it there's a I think the guy's called Freddy. He did like loads of like little CGI sort of lightsaber fights and stuff on YouTube, and then there was like the Darth Maul fan film on YouTube as well, and they were all so well done compared to any other lightsaber fight I saw in the films. Like I've watched them more than I've watched any of the Star Wars films.
Oh no, I don't agree with that. I agree that some lightsaber duels are more static. It can be quite.
Well, yeah, they're just sort of like 3 or 4 slashes, and then they're just like hold like the lightsabers, and they're just like sparking, and then they sort of use the force and blast each other away, and the sort of fight's over. It's like, come on.
I agree that some of them are like that, but the Anakin versus Obi-Wan's not like that. Like you say, duel of Fangs is some of the best like filmmaking ever put to screen. I think that's a great duel. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn versus Darth Maul is amazing.
Yeah, that's the best one.
Somebody like is me watching a Star Wars video. It's a very fair point. I argue with that. If that's the most important duel in Star Wars history, because if Darth Maul didn't kill Qui-Gon Jinn, Anakin would have had the father he needed, which was Qui-Gon Jinn. Because Obi-Wan, as much as he's a good bloke, and he's more of a brother, older brother to Anakin, not a father, and he's rushed upon him. He just, it was his master's like dying wish for Obi-Wan to take on the boy. He wasn't ready for it. Like Obi-Wan had just become a Jedi Knight himself towards the end of Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you've got to train Anakin. You've got to train this guy who's like this little kid who's already by Jedi. Like they say in Phantom Menace, he's too old. We can't force mold him or whatever. He's got too many attachments. And you already know he's a bit OP per se. And Obi-Wan's got to look after him. So someone who was saying if Qui-Gon Jinn didn't die in Phantom Menace, the trajectory of the trilogies of Anakin turning heel per se would have changed because Qui-Gon Jinn would have been there.
To be fair, there's no one more qualified for the job than Liam Neeson because he's the king of Narnia. He trained Batman.
So that would have been good. It was like I think it was a theory I saw on like the Star Wars Theory channel, but it's a sound observation that is. But to get back to Obi-Wan, I feel before I get into spoilers, even if you're just remotely a little bit into Star Wars, you have to watch it. At the end of the day, if you're remotely a little bit into Star Wars, you've probably already watched it, and you can listen to me like go on spoilers or rip into or suck everyone off even more so now when we're going to spoilers. But
all right, before spoilers, then, is it better than Mandalorian?
I think it's better than Mandalorian because its focus is on Obi-Wan. I love Obi, but at the same time.
So if it wasn't Obi-Wan, say it was, or say it was Obi-Wan, but it wasn't Ewan McGregor, would it still be better?
I feel yes, because it's more of a tight story arc.
Yeah.
I feel like to its credit, and I know what Mandalorian's trying to do, and it does still have a story arc, but it feels like it has little adventures in The Mandalorian. Feels like he's like a spaghetti western like marshal going to different towns sometimes.
Oh, he's doing side quests.
And he's doing like, yeah, pretend it's like an RPG and doing side quests, as you say, where Obi-Wan's just them belaying the main quests.
Yeah, so there's more purpose, more driven focus.
It's more story-driven focus, and it's more characters you're more familiar with, and you're a lot more. Me especially, as I say, I'm more nostalgic towards. But it's emotional. It opens up. I don't want to say a new era of Star Wars, like a new timeline, because it's more fresh. So it's a bit of Star Wars where the Emperor have only just taken over. There's a lot of good performances in it. There's a good performance from one of the ladies who's in Game of Thrones, who plays an Empire officer who turns face per se. There's a lot of Ice Cube's son is really good in it as a person who helps out the Jedi. The Asian comedian Kumar Nanjiani, I'm going to butcher his name and apology.
Kamal Nanjiani. Oh fuck! I had it in my head.
That chap, he's good in it. He's quite funny, and he plays like.
What? He's in Obi-Wan.
He's in Obi-Wan.
Oh right, I haven't seen any publicisation of him in Obi-Wan.
He has like one of the funniest scenes in it. In a scene I've never seen done before in Star Wars, which makes zero sense because it's so hilarious, and like that could have been. I'm surprised it hasn't been done before, but it's definitely worth a watch. It's the only Star Wars thing for like years. Even like, and I didn't have this in Mandalorian, where I got like, and this sounds really like pandering and over the top and dramatic, but I got upset watching.
Oh, you cried.
Yeah, exactly. Like pretty much had tears in my eyes at one point.
That's good. That's good. To be fair, I cry at most things. To be fair,
it's good to cry. Hashtag non-toxic masculine. But to segue straight in from, so this will be spoilers.
Yeah, straight into spoilers then.
The main bit which made me cry was the second duel, which is amazing. And the last on episode 6 is between Obi-Wan and Vader, obviously. And there's a bit in it where, so the first start of the duel, Obi-Wan's on the back foot, but he's got a bit more of his mojo back, and he's still holding his own, but it's very Vader's fight. So Vader wrecks him. And what's really cool about it is one of the few, like you're saying about how bad some of the duels are, it's one of the few Star Wars duels where they're using the Force, and don't get me wrong, it's still them throwing rocks, but doesn't look dumb, and it's quite seamless. And there's a bit in it where they've just like tripped each other up with a rock, and then they're yeeting at each other, and it's not over the top.
Yeah,
and it's over the top at one bit, but it's when it needs to be. So everyone's standing behind him, and like 50 rocks he throws at Vader. So Obi-Wan gets decked while Vader, and he buries him alive. And he says, "You thought you could destroy me, Master." And then Obi-Wan has again, this is a bit cringy, but it worked really well. I don't know why it worked really well, because there are a lot of other things he gets on my tits. He has one of those moments where voices come through his head, and he gets his hero moment, and he smashes all the other rocks off, and he has his moment of hope, and he knows that he's got to grow a pair. He's got to smash it because Leia and Luke are on the line, and therefore the rest, not just them as children, but all the rest of the galaxy. So then he jumps out, and he just goes hell for leather, and he's smashing Anakin up to the point, as I say, you see his mask, and it's Anakin switched with James Earl Jones' voice, but you can see Hayden Christensen and hear Hayden Christensen.
Ah.
And Obi-Wan, McGregor does a really good performance of him being frustrated, and with a couple of beats, he just says, "I'm sorry," and he says, "I'm sorry, Anakin. I'm sorry for all of it." And you can see Obi-Wan Kenobi is really upset. He's generally
because this was someone he cared for, and he had to go.
Someone he cared for. It's essentially used to be his son / younger brother,
Yeah.
and he's looking at it, and that bit was quite upsetting.
So when Vader speaks, is it always James Earl Jones, or does Hayden Christian also speak as Vader?
It's always James Earl Jones, apart from that
okay.
bit where Obi-Wan smashes his like breathing apparatus.
So it's like James Earl Jones is the breathing apparatus rather than he.
Yeah,
Vader.
James Earl Jones is like Darth Vader's a mix of Anakin, but also him using the breathing apparatus to speak, and the truth.
Okay.
Like,
I like that usage then. And do we get I have the high ground?
you don't know. You don't.
Oh, they could have played that, but at the same time, it could have really taken you out of the moment.
So that there was a bit where he says hello there at the end to Luke when he meets Luke.
That's gold.
The only hello there bit there is.
Yeah. Hello there.
So that's the second fight scene with Darth Vader and Anakin.
It sounds a lot like the end of The Northman.
Yeah.
Right, where he's getting absolutely blasted to shit by the guy. I can't remember the people's names now, but Alexander Skarsgård is getting absolutely blasted to shit, and I'm pretty sure he hears voices, and then he sort of has a resurgence, and then like chops the guy in half.
Yeah, it's again like he has his hero moment, like you're saying, like it's been done in that.
Yeah, it sounds very reminiscent. The way you described it, it was like almost like identical.
So Obi-Wan says to him, and he feels really emotional. Obi-Wan feels like he's to blame, the reason he's turned into a Darth Vader monster. And so he's apologising, and he says, I'm sorry, Anakin, for all of it, type of thing. And he says, you never killed Anakin. I did. And Anakin's like, I killed Anakin, and I became Darth Vader. And he's saying, like, you are truly lost then. And then he carries on fighting him, and he smashes him up. But that's why I feel like they had a really hard job to do, like you said earlier on, is
they got to end on bad terms.
No real stakes within the show, in the sense that, as I said, the structure of the show is Obi-Wan looking after or trying to get Princess Leia back. But she's not going to fucking die. Obi-Wan's not going to die. Darth Vader's not going to die. Luke's not going to die.
The only people that could die is Reva.
Yeah, Reva. But they still do it, and this is my only problem going into it. Again, not problem, because that's very dramatic, but I was aware of going into it to watch it, is what are they going to do with these characters? But they make you feel so invested in them, especially in between that fight. So the first duel they have, Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Is this in an earlier episode?
This is in episode 3. So we find in episode 3. And may I add, I said, Darth Vader gives zero fucks. To draw Obi-Wan out, he's cracking teenagers' necks. Darth Vader is. It's just throwing people about, killing.
That's nothing for Hayden Christensen, is it? Well, sorry, not Hayden Christensen. I should say Anakin. I'm not trying to say Hayden Christensen goes around cracking kids' necks.
Cracking kids' necks. But that fight scene, he's saying, look what you have become. Obi-Wan says, look what you've become. And Darth Vader said, I think I'm paraphrasing, but he says, no, look what you've made me. And he's kicking off with him. And Obi-Wan's literally just hiding from him. He's scared of him. It's done well, that first fight scene. It's less of a fight scene, more of a cat and mouse game. So Obi-Wan's on running away, and then Vader gets him. And what's done really well, and you can see why Darth Vader would want to do this. It's poetic. Is Obi-Wan gets set fire? Darth Vader sets fire to Obi-Wan, burns him, and that's brutal to watch. And that's done well. And one of his new friends, the Jedi sympathizer, that good officer, she saves him. And it shows how the Jedi around that time are a myth, and people need to they save them. They're like refugees. Yeah, they're endangered. They're going extinct. I think one of the Inquisitors say that. Say the Jedi are extinct. But Reva, it turns round. A lot of people guess this, and a lot of people in Star Wars guess this because we're in the first couple of the first scene of the show is younglings, a group of younglings running away from Order 66 in the Jedi Temple as it happened. And it's done it's I don't know, it's quite emotional, but also shot really well. There's quite a few tracking shots, and these kids are running away, And then as the story progresses, it turns out that Reva is one of the younglings from that scene. She's so hell-bent on getting Obi-Wan. Is so she gets on the good graces of Darth Vader, gets a room with Darth Vader so she can kill Anakin. And the reason she wants to kill Anakin is because Reva is the only one out of her youngling friends who survived because she hid and Anakin killed all her youngling friends.
Oh, so she was in the room where Anakin killed all the kids.
Yeah, she was in Jedi Temple. And it's something which
It's predictable.
is predictable, but like you want to see it because
It incorporates her story arc. It makes sense for the story. I mean, it's one of those sort of like cliche, predictable sort of things, but it sounds like it wasn't done poorly. It sounds like, you know, it was done well.
because her performance carries it a lot, but also it just makes sense. It's not something which is pulled out of like thin air. There would be kids who would survive that attack, and if you were like a teenage age, you'd always remember that. You'd have like PTSD from that, and you'd want
You'd always remember it. I don't think you'd be able to ever forget.
exactly. And if you had like a power and you was hell bent on getting revenge on it,
Yeah, if you had a chance, the opportunity, yeah.
a chance, and she makes that opportunity herself. By she knows that Darth Vader's obsessed with Obi-Wan, because at the end of the day, Darth Vader got wrecked by Obi-Wan. He knows he's not dead, so he's been looking for him for all these 10 years. So Reva thinks of ideas to try and get.
So she's cunning again. She's not a damsel in distress. She sounds like she's been written really well. To be fair, considering you said people slagged her off in the first couple of episodes, from what you've described, her character arc is probably one of the best in the series.
Oh yeah, she is. But what's good about it is like she's neither a hero. She's still a villain. She doesn't suddenly get redeemed. She just does things what makes sense.
You're sympathetic to her cause.
Yeah, you're sympathetic to her cause to the point like you know why she's doing that, but she's still done some fucked up things to get to that point. Like,
yeah, she's cunning and resilient. You know, she knows what her end goal is, and she'll stop at nothing to get it.
she goes to some mad lengths to get to that point of trying to like kill Darth Vader, and that's a good fight scene in itself.
Yeah.
So when she tries to square up to Anakin and try and kill Anakin, and Darth Vader literally says it. He says, "You think I never knew? I always knew." And she's going how to lever, like trying to have it.
Does she have the Force or lightsabers or what she got?
Oh yeah, all the Inquisitors have the Force, and she's quite badass. But compared to Darth Vader, she was short. Like,
well, spoilers. Like you say, she's on this huge revenge arc, but you just know that it's ultimately gonna go nowhere because Vader gets killed by Palpatine. So
exactly as you say, but you're still invested in it.
Yeah.
Because you follow her on the journey, and you know like something. Why is she's so hell bent on getting Obi-Wan? You know there's something deep there. You know it's not just because she wants to be Darth Vader's best friend. And part of me wondered, like, oh, why does she look up to Darth Vader so much? Or why does she want his attention? You figure it out why before it happens. But the way they orchestrate that, as I say, when she's trying to kill Vader, Vader doesn't take his lightsaber out. He doesn't have to. He's just sidestepping her and just using the Force to block it and throw her away. So that's cool. As you say, it's Darth Vader menacing, yeah, it's worth watching just for the duel scenes. But also the bit where it's quiet and it's just Obi-Wan being upset and being depressed. Because that's like absolutely gold. The other bits which I like are just stuff when you're seeing Ice Cube. Ice Cube plays like a rebel leader. before there's rebels. He's helping the Jedi like get away. There's that comedian, that Asian comedian, who's good. Kamal
Nanjiani.
That's it. He plays, as I say, the reference I was making. He pretends to be a Jedi, and he's not. He's using magnets and like trickery to trick people that he's a Jedi, and he's like, they pay him, and he can get them off planet because they're refugees as well. But he isn't a Jedi, so he's not force sensitive. He's just a bit of a con man, and I think it's something which is interesting because you haven't seen somebody pose as a Jedi and be a con man. Like that's it's quite jokes in it. I can see why Leia would get on people's ticks because she's like just a cute kid in it, but she's not just a cute kid as well. I think that's what I like.
So she can't be too badass because she never became. Yeah, she was. Well, also, but Leia never really had any sort of strength about her person until much later on. You know, like it was more so after New Hope. Was it Return of the Empire Strikes Back?
I think when she essentially breaks herself out of prison. I think that's what's called.
Yeah, that's when she sort of gets a bit more sort of resilient. You know, she learns that as such because she's been treated as a princess for most of her life. It is what you perceive in the original trilogy. But clearly she's had a bit of a rough time with Obi-Wan in the beginning anyway. But she can't be too sort of like badass because obviously she hasn't learnt that, not necessarily that skill, but that sort of resilience yet. She learns that when she's Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia.
Yeah, I think there's elements of her being a leader which is good and her being like resilient. But in New Hope, especially as you say, they can't run with it too much because she's still 10 years old at the end of the day. But it's definitely worth a watch. It really is.
Do you reckon? Is there anywhere for them to go for a second season?
So they've asked that, and that's what I was going to finish with. But it's a very good question. Because it was such a good show, and if they said they was doing a second season, I'd be happy. But it really doesn't need one because I think, and it was an impossible task, like you've said, and I can be proved wrong again. But the constraints they're under of, you know, what happens to all the main characters.
Yeah.
You know what happens to Leia, you know what happens to Obi-Wan, you know what happens to Darth Vader, you know what happens to Palpatine for that matter. And like I referred to earlier on, the Grand Inquisitor in Obi-Wan, Reva stabs him, and you think he's dead. But in Rebels, he's alive, and Rebels is set after Obi-Wan. So a lot of the people who watch the Rebels TV show and the Star Wars community are just like, he's not dead. And spoilers, he isn't dead. He comes back in the 6th episode. But as you say, stuff like that happens, and like the sweaty nerds like myself and the wider community know that when stuff like that happens, you know they're not dead, you know. So if they do a season 2, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, where they take it.
On top of that as well, the storytelling was really tight. If they'd had another episode or 2, I think it would have been too many.
Yeah.
You could have done it in a film, but I feel like it would have been a bit rushed.
Yeah, it'd be too rushed for a film. It would have been too little for, like a trilogy. I think you shouldn't have to worry about writing to a constraint. It's like, oh, we need to write 10 episodes, or we need to write 5 episodes, or we need to write for a 2-hour film slot. Just write for the material that you want to write for. So you're just purely writing for content. You're not writing to fill voids. I want this character to go from A to B, right? There is no point in adding in A 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 or whatever, because it just doesn't add anything. The story you wanted to tell was A to B, so just tell A to B. We don't need everything else. Just keep it precise and simple, and we'll appreciate it more. And I think, by the way you've described it, it doesn't make sense for them to do a second season unless they have a story to tell. Don't just do a second season because it was popular, and because it did well. only do that second season if you've actually got a story that's worth telling. You know, it's just let it be a limited series. And I mean, it's not like they can't do like a spin-off series for Reva or, you know, for a young Leia or something. You know, I mean, just saying young Leia, that just sounds like a series already. You know, I can already see them doing something like that, like they did with young Sheldon.
Yeah, oh God, don't get me started on that. But I should say, to be fair, Reva, again, we're in spoilers, don't really matter, but Reva doesn't die, and her like story arc is good in the sense that she goes to kill Luke because she sees a hologram between Obi-Wan, and she learns that Luke is Vader's son. So she goes to kill Luke, knowing that I'm going to hurt Vader how he hurt me, type of thing. And then she sees how scared Luke is, and she's just like, oh, she bottles it, and she thinks, what the fuck am I doing, type of thing.
I'm 10 years old, I can't kill another 10-year-old.
It's a good moment, and it's done well. But what I really liked about it, especially in the last 2 minutes of the show, like I think it's like the last 5 minutes of the show, he does like little things which cover the like plot holes. So you think to yourself, so why didn't Vader continue hunting for Obi-Wan? So he gets his ass kicked. Vader gets his ass handed to him at the last end of that like duel, like I say. So his like breathing apparatus gets battered off, and it's Anakin screaming at Obi-Wan, like struggling to breathe. He's walking towards him, and Obi-Wan just walks off, and he says, "You are truly lost then if you killed Vader. Like if Vader killed Anakin, I can't save you." And he leaves him, and Anakin's screaming, trying to get Obi-Wan, but he's barely moving. Like, and you think to yourself, why doesn't Vader continue chasing him? But there's a cool scene after where Vader's reporting to Palpatine, and Vader's saying, "I've sent all the probe droids out. We're going to find him. I'm going to do like send loads of Star Destroyers out. I need to find Obi-Wan." And Palpatine, what you got to think is, Vader's still scared of Palpatine. He's seeing what he's capable of. He's seeing, like, you know, he's survived fucking Mace Windu, survived his own lightning, his own Force lightning. And something like they like explore in the like greater canon is because Palpatine saved Anakin and made him into what he wanted to. He's like Darth Vader's suit actually isn't that strong. It isn't like tech-wise. It's quite old, and it's very vulnerable to like Force lightning. So Anakin's like scared of Palpatine for that, but Palpatine essentially tells Darth Vader off, and he says, like, my apprentice, you seem very like distraught. You don't seem clear on the goal, and your goal is to basically do what I fucking say. You're my apprentice. Palpatine said
rule the Empire. It's not for a personal vendetta.
Exactly. So it's cool because it covers the plot hole of what does it take 10 years for Vader to meet Obi-Wan again after you've just got battered.
Yeah. And I guess it makes a bit of sense of why Obi-Wan then fucks off for another 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. So why Obi-Wan is in hiding and it's successful. So that's good, that 2-minute scene. Another like 2-minute scene which is really cool is Qui-Gon Jinn as a Force ghost, isn't it, for probably about 2 minutes. Has a really good fun scene.
Is it actually Liam Neeson?
Actual Liam Neeson's in it, yeah.
That's good.
So that's cool. That's done really well. It's quite wholesome, that exchange.
Everyone's like, where the fuck were you for all your advice during this whole thing? Why have you now just popped up?
So that within itself, like Obi-Wan's like not praying, that's a bit much, but he's meditating and asking for Qui-Gon Jinn's advice. And then at the end, and he says, "Here you are, you took your time."
Sorry, I was having lunch.
And then Obi-Wan says, "I thought you'd never come." And he says, "Yeah, we have a lot to catch up on." I've saw loads of memes on it, and it's just Blue Ghost Anakin. He's just saying, "Oh, I was trying to go with Anakin," and he's thinking, "Fucking hell, I was trying to go with Anakin." It's coffee. But, you know what I mean? So no, it's good. I think it was a really good part of it in it, and in hindsight now, George Lucas probably like didn't know he was going to be that much of a star in his own right. Joel Edgerton as Uncle Obi.
Joel Edgerton's a fantastic actor, to be fair. There's nothing I've seen him in where I've gone like, oh, he was shit. Like everything he's been in has been like top notch. Even if the film itself is poops, like he's like absolutely outshone everyone. And he seems like a sound bloke as well. To be fair,
It just seems sound.
he's got his head screwed on.
In 2002, that's after the collect, he was just cast in that type of thing, and he was nowhere near as big as he is now. It's good that they bring him back. In the scene he's in, he's like very protective of Luke.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. So he smashes that as well. But yeah, definitely give it a watch.
In fairness, you have somewhat convinced me to give it a look-see.
Yeah, good.
I convinced you not to watch Jurassic World, and you've somewhat convinced me to watch Kenobi. I don't really need to because you've explained it all to me quite nicely, and I've created a nice picture in my head of how the story goes and what it's like.
I think even if you don't watch the episode, it's not like you should watch. I'm not condoning you should watch television or films like this. But even if you don't want to watch the entire show, just watching the two duel scenes, but both between Anakin and Obi-Wan, they're great in itself. Like,
I do think you need to watch it with context to feel the emotion. I mean, and like we say, this whole ordeal that we're doing is about not necessarily promoting, but it is promoting, film, TV, and games. It's to actually go and see them, to enjoy them, not just to cop out and watch, some YouTube videos.
as you say, you don't want to just have a quick fix of it. You should enjoy and indulge
you should get
the
yourself
art we try
invested.
recommend or take the piss out of.
Yeah, I'm actually intrigued by it now. To be fair, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
And normally I'm sort of, especially like your Marvels and your Disneys and stuff. I'm like,
Business, yeah, especially Marvel, I suppose.
yeah, I can like take it or leave it, but I'm actually quite intrigued by this. So watch this space. I might come back at you in like a couple of days' time. I'm like, Mikey, I've watched it all. It's great.
Yeah, good.
But all right. So I suppose we should jump straight into moments of the week now, shall we?
Yeah, so bearing in mind, I've just steered the ship for a while. So, what was your moment of the week?
Oh, I'm going first this time. That's new. My moment of the week. Well, ironically, you brought up their name already, which was coincidental. But Kamal Nanjiani, he's got a film on Amazon Prime, I think it is. I could be wrong. It could be on Netflix, but I'm pretty sure I watched it on Amazon. Right, and it's called The Big Sick.
Yeah, it's a good film, though. I watched it. I watched it years ago.
Yeah, I think it was like, I think it came out like, it's either 2017 or 2019. I can't remember which one. And it's the story of how he met his wife.
Yeah, it's like biopic-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, because he plays himself, and then I can't remember the female actress's name. She reminds me of Imogen Poots, but it's not Imogen Poots.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good articulation, that is.
Yeah. Because I mix them up in my head occasionally. But it's a story of how he met his wife, and not to like spoiler it too much. Holly Hunter and Ray Romano are in it, and they are brilliant. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a way of describing it. That he's a comedian that's like on stage doing his bit, and he gets heckled by this girl. Right, he then meets the girl after his set at the bar. And he was like, "Oh, you're the heckler," and blah blah blah, and they get on really well. And then he takes her back to her place, and then they start a bit of a relationship. Then I can't remember what the reason was now, but something happens, and they decide, oh, that's it. She finds, because his parents are trying to set him up for an arranged marriage, because he's from Pakistan, and that's where that's heavily focused on arranged marriages. So his mother keeps trying to set him up. And his brother Faisal, I don't know the actor's name, but if anyone's seen Four Lions, he plays brother Faisal.
Yeah, it's special.
Faisal, is it Faisal? Faisal, and
I forgot he's in it. Yeah.
And he so his brother's in an arranged marriage, and his parents are trying to get him to an arranged marriage, but he wants to date a white girl. and they keep trying to set him up, and he's got these sort of like, it's kind of like Tinder profiles that have been printed out sort of thing, but it's not obviously Tinder, and he's got them all in this sort of like lockbox as such, and his girlfriend comes across it. She's like, "What the hell's all this?" And he's like, "My mum keeps trying to set me up with blind dates, blah 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 blah." They sort of like break up, but then she has like a medical condition where she has to go into hospital, but he knows nothing about this, and one of her friends gives him a call to say, "Can you come to the hospital and look in on her, because I've got to go to like work or something or other." And he's like, "We've been broken up for like a couple of weeks now, like that'd just be weird." She says, "There's nobody else I can call. Her parents live, in another state or something. Can you just come in and look on her, and I'll come back, at the end of my shift or whatever." And he's like weird about it, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll come in." And he comes in and he's with her. And as he arrives, the doctors sort of say to him like, "She's in a real bad situation. We need to put her in a medically induced coma." But they can only do that if she, if it's signed off by a family member, and the doctor says, "Are you her husband?" And he goes, "No, like I was a boyfriend, but we've broken up and whatever." And he goes, "Well, she needs to be in a medically induced coma, and I need her husband to sign off on it." And he goes, "Well, I'm not her husband." And he was like, right, okay, but I need her husband to sign off. He's really pressuring on it, because basically the doctor's not trying to say it out loud, but it's through subtext. He's basically saying, if you need to sign this and claim you're a husband, otherwise she's dead. And he signs off on it, and he's sort of like with her. And then Ray Romano and Holly Hunter, who are her parents, come over, and they know everything about their relationship and why they broke up. But now Kamal Nanjiani has to sort of deal with them around her being in a coma and why they broke up. And then he starts, and it's that whole relationship there of him and her parents. And it's a really interesting story, especially when it gets to the bit where they want to move her out of the hospital, but they can't because it could damage her and all this other stuff. And I wasn't fully aware until afterwards that it was actually based on him and his actual wife. And I was like, holy shit, to have gone through that is horrible. Like, not just film and story wise, but to really live it. And the fact that he then married this girl and everything, it's just a really incredible story, really. And I mean, the bit that stood with me is when they wanted to move her out of the hospital. Holly Hunter's character says something like, "I don't trust the doctors," and Kamal's like, "What do you mean you don't trust them? They're doctors. You should trust them." And I think Ray Romano says something like, "They're people just like you and me. We make mistakes all the time. Just because they're a doctor doesn't mean they don't make mistakes." And it's weird because I think like that too. When you go to the hospital, you're kind of like, you trust them because they're medically trained professionals. They're, in some senses, the top of their fields. So you think that, they never make mistakes. They'll always do things perfectly. But you got to remember, they're understaffed, they're underpaid, they're overworked. When you really think about it, it's a horrible environment to be in. And yet we entrust our lives to them, and it's just the way they were like, they're people like you and me. They make mistakes too, and you're like, oh shit, maybe I don't want to go to the hospital anymore. It just
And that film is him integrating with that family, with her, like as you said, the performances from Holly Hunter and like Ray Romano.
Yeah, that dynamic, it makes the film.
He doesn't gel with them at first. I think that's.
And he doesn't fully gel with them at the end. He sort of gets on, like, because Ray Romano plays quite that awkward sort of guy, but then Holly Hunter's real sort of like, she's just seeing red everywhere, so she's like full on like laying into him, but she actually softens to him a lot sooner than Ray Romano's character does, which is really interesting. Yeah, and plus because it's Kamal Nanjiani's story, it's very factual. The conversations that were had. I mean, some senses it will be dramatized a little bit, but he was in the room when these conversations happened, so he knows exactly what went down and how things were said. So he's got the facts down to a T. It's not like, say, watching The Crown on Netflix. We don't really know what went on behind the scenes. We can only guess what was said it's a lot of hearsay. But this, it's facts. But yeah, so that was my moment of the week, to be fair, because I actually really enjoyed watching that. It's not the sort of film you'd think would be enjoyable because of the undertone of medical condition sort of thing, but it's
quite heartwarming, though.
Yeah, it's quite especially with the ending.
Yeah, she obviously comes out all right, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. I watched it and I thought it's quite wholesome. Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. I'd recommend it also. Amazon's weird like that in the sense that
they can have some bangers, but then they can also have some awful trash.
Yeah, they have some awful trash, but they don't have a lot on there.
Yeah.
And what they do have, like, their original stuff is really quite good. So, like, after your recommendation, and I think we will do an episode on this soon, and admittedly, a bit behind, but I'm going to sort of probably finish watching it. I don't know. This time next week, maybe, is Reacher.
Yeah, Reacher's brilliant.
And again, on another upcoming episodes, I think we said we'd do, is The Boys. I love The Boys to bits. I think The Boys is great.
I think with Amazon, I feel like their films are hit or miss, but their TV shows tend to be really good.
That Marvelous Miss Marvel was meant to be good, that TV show, or whatever it's called. But the TV shows are good. Like,
you also need to watch Jack Ryan and Invincible. You still ain't watched those.
Yeah, so exactly. So the Amazon TV shows are good. So, but they just haven't got a lot on there. Like, despite me now just naming a few on there, compared to Netflix, it's fuck all. Like. But I suppose if Kieran's choosing the big city who's moment of the week, I suppose my one's like a 20-year-old film. But we're both choosing old picks, not exactly fresh new recommendations this week, which came out. And it's not so much a story, but it's more of a point we made. So me and Charlotte went out for a meal on Saturday night, and then we had a bottle of wine, and it wasn't the most fun thing to watch, but it's just really nostalgic. It's Toy Story 2. We just ended up watching months ago. We started watching Toy Story 2, and we finished watching it. And I was saying that out of all the film franchises, I still think the Toy Story, all 4 Toy Story films, is probably the most solid franchise there is.
Yeah, where each film is decent.
Yeah, exactly. So when each film is great, each film is has a good standard. Even Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers is Fellowship's not as good as Return of the Ring and Two Towers, I suppose. Hobbit's pretty crap. The Fast and Furious franchise is up and down all the time.
The Hobbit's a different trilogy to Lord of the Rings, in my opinion.
But yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. But it's the strongest franchise there is. The original came out in the early 90s, might even been 93. Don't quite know. I think Toy Story 2 came out in 96. But it's just gold. It's hilarious. And even now it has funny adult jokes in you cop the second round. Now you're watching it.
Yeah, now that you're older and you get the jokes.
Yeah.
Now you're older and you get the jokes. You got a cast of all funny characters. Rex is a pure jokes character. I think it's all pretty timeless.
I think Slinky Dog was the funniest I felt. Dog and Mr. Potato Head. Yeah, again, Mr. Potato Head. Watching too. Mr. Potato Head comes out with some right sass.
Yeah.
It's absolute jokes. Buzz Woody's jokes. Stinky Pete's a right bastard. There's some right villains in it.
My favourite bit about Toy Story 2, right, was the bit where he's getting stitched back up in Al's toy barn by the old fella.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
Such a pleasing montage. That's like ASMR for the eyes.
Yeah.
Because that character, if I'm right, that character is Jerry, and Jerry was in an animated short called Jerry's Game where he played chess. Right?
Yes.
Now, did you know this, Mikey? So me and Mikey went to Aberystwyth University. The guy that animated and directed Jerry's Game also went to Aberystwyth University. Granted, he went 20 years before we did, but I find that's really interesting. So he's technically the most notable.
Was it Pete Doctor or something like that? Pete Doctor's American, isn't he?
No, no, he's Polish.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that's our most notable alumni To be fair, that's in the field of what we were interested in. But yeah, I think that's quite cool because Jerry's Game, I think, because films used to have like little short films before the main feature in the cinema, whereas now it's just like trailers and stuff. And Jerry's Game was one of those. You should be able to watch it on YouTube or something if you have no idea what I'm on about.
It's on Disney Plus, like, as well.
It's on Disney Plus, is it?
Yeah. But no, I think Toy Story 2 is like, they're all good, but especially Toy Story 2.
I think Toy Story 2 is the best of them. Because, I mean, Toy Story 4, I think...
It's got something to do with a fair or a theme park, if I recall.
No, there's a carnival.
Carnival, yeah. Oh, I mean, give me a break. A theme park or a fair, and you say carnival. Oh, come off it.
You are close, yeah. You are close. I give you that. But they're all good, like, and I think they like go with the times.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, like, when Toy Story 3 was done, and you think, oh, why are they doing Toy Story 4? It's going to be shit. But Toy Story 4 was great as well.
Mm.
I think like Jesse's a really good addition to the gang, and Bullseye to a degree. As I say, Stinky Pete's a right evil son, and like when you meet Barbie's jokes, Buzz, who still thinks he's a space ranger.
Actually, the only time we see Zurg.
Speaking of Star Wars, that's a joke. He's like, "I am your father," and he's like, "Oh," and he plays cat for him. That's pretty jokes.
Yeah.
The Buzz who still thinks he's like Buzz, not a toy. He's playing capture with Zurg because he's his dad. Like, it's gold. It's pure gold.
And then is it Squeezy? And he's like in the credits, he's singing.
That's it. Wheezy, like, yeah.
Wheezy, yeah.
Yeah, that's it, because he had his like voice box fixed.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like, I don't know if they do it anymore, but they used to. They animated bloopers.
Yeah, Charlotte mentioned that, and I was like, I totally forgot about that. I was like, that's gold, that is. And they animated like.
Yeah, it makes them seem more real because obviously you don't bloop like the voice actors will blooper. You know, they'll make mistakes, but they haven't been animated yet. So the fact that it's been written to be animated to make it look like a blooper in itself, those are just mini films.
Yeah, I thought that was a good idea. It's interesting. I totally forgot about it. I was like, Charlotte was saying, watch the end now, because we watched the bloopers and that'd be weird. It was Joe.
Actually, this is a little off topic, but kind of the same thing. Do you remember Shrek 2? There was a karaoke thing or something right at the end of that one as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
You could vote people on or off, and if you chose wrong, Simon Cowell would be like, and the winner is me!
Yeah, I remember that. It's weird.
You know, they don't do things like that now, do they?
Shrek's not as good as, like, as obviously Shrek is glove, Shrek is life, but at the same time, the Shrek franchise is weird, because Shrek 1 and 2 is actually really strong. But I can remember the premise of Shrek 3 and 4, but it's like, that's about it. Like, Shrek 1 and 2 is really good.
Don't forget 5.
There's a 5. There isn't a 5, is there?
Yeah, Rumpelstiltskin.
That's Shrek. I thought that was 4.
Well, there's one called Shrek Forever After, isn't there?
Yeah, that's 4, isn't it?
Is it? I swear there was 5.
Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, Shrek Forever After, isn't it?
Shrek 2 is decent. Because, you know, you got the introduction of Puss in Boots and then, like, Fiona's parents and, you know, Far, Far Away, like, as a place and all the new characters and stuff you meet there. But you can't beat the original Shrek. I can quote it word for word.
Yeah, the original Shrek is.
You know, it's brilliant.
So, yeah, my moment of the week, and, well, suggestion per se, is don't forget how good Toy Story is, and if you haven't watched it, what the hell are you doing, Wheeler?
Yeah.
Sit down and watch all 4 of them tonight.
Not just that, but don't be afraid to go back and watch some old classics. I mean, and even if they're not classics, just films that, you know, came out before your time.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I mean, you've watched a lot of 80s films, but you haven't really watched any sort of, like, 60s or 50s films, have you?
No, I watch, like, classics in the sense that, as you say, like, far back films. If you don't include It's a Wonderful Life, I've watched. Then it's probably... What's The Shining? I like the old... I like 70 films like that, like, which are actually good. But
I'm thinking, like, Alfred Hitchcock or Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin, Modern Times.
I haven't watched films. I can't... I don't know.
They take a different sort of, like, focus as such to watch that because it's so different to what we now know as cinema. But you have to appreciate, like, the writing back then was, like, phenomenal.
I can appreciate the influence, like how good they would have been back then. But yeah, as you say, I should get into it a bit more.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of brilliant films from back then that are even better than films that come out today, even with the advancements in technology.
Oh yeah, good story is always just a good story, isn't it?
Yeah. I suppose we need to wrap that up there because we've currently been recording for 92 minutes. I need to edit this down a fair bit. we had a shitload to say today, haven't we?
Yeah, I've had a shitload to say tonight, yeah. So thank you for listening, as always.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone listening in.
Please share it whenever you can, and the more listeners, the better. But
yeah, don't forget we're on Anchor, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. So we're in all your favourite places.
If you give us a review, that's all deal as well.
Yeah. Also on Spotify, because Anchor's part of Spotify, there should be like a question segment or a poll segment or something I've started teasing with just to see how that works or what it gets up to. So if you fancy responding to a question on there or a poll on there, that'd be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But yeah, thanks for listening, and let us know what you think of this Convince Me format. Next week we'll go back to a more sort of standard review of something.
Oh, something we've both watched, top thing, cool.
Yeah. So this will be something we do sporadically. We'll just mix it in occasionally, a bit like when we do best films of a director or an actor or something. We'll do one of those again soon at some point.
Yeah.
Right, but we will catch you next time.
We'll catch you on the next episode. Look after yourselves.
Look after yourselves. Right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, friend.